Welcome and thank you for joining LPG Talks Live. My name is André Pimentel and I'm with ANOVA, the remote monitoring partner and industry council member of the World LPG Association. It's an absolute pleasure to be hosting the 7th edition of the LPG Talks Live series, focused today on LPG as a marine fuel. We have had a huge amount of interest and registrations today, and we thank you all for your presence here with us today. In fact, this is already the second most registered session, which really shows the relevance of LPG as a marine fuel. Let me just remind you that this is a World LPG Association meeting and is therefore governed by the World LPG Association statutes, specifically our antitrust guidelines, which prohibits the discussion of commercial sensitive information such as pricing, volumes, market shares, etc. And today, we have a super interesting session focused on LPG as a marine fuel. LPG is increasingly being used in marine engines in various types of sizes of vessels, from small leisure crafts to fishing boats, petrol boats, and larger vessels. For many types of ships, LPG is the perfect solution because of its global availability, its simple technology, its low installation costs, and its low emissions. In today's session, we will have a panel of experts that will discuss LPG as a marine fuel. We will have a Q&A session in the end, so feel free to submit your questions either through the chat or through the Q&A box. I'm super excited with the agenda today, and thank you again for joining us. And to kick off our session, I am pleased to welcome James Rockwell, CEO and Managing Director of the World LPG Association. Welcome, James, and thank you for kicking off our session today.
Thank you, Andre. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this webinar on marine uses for LPG. I'd like to thank ANOVA for hosting this series of LPG Talks live. As they've been doing now, as Andre said, this is the 7th edition. Now, let me start by saying something about shipping. Shipping is the lifeblood of the global economy. It's a major part of all supply chains. Within the EU alone, shipping counts for 80% of our imports and our exports by volume. And globally, the value of shipping trading is more than $14 trillion a year. Seaborne transport is by far and away the most energy efficient form of freight transport that we have in the world. Yet, according to the IMO, shipping accounts for about 3% of all greenhouse gas emissions. And this figure is forecast to rise to 10% by 2050 if nothing is done. But of course, something will be done. The question is what? And there are many pathways to reduce shipping emissions. You can look at operational changes in routings. You can look at new ship designs. But if you really want to achieve substantive reductions in emissions, this can only really be achieved by addressing fuel choice. And here, we believe LPG has a very important role to play. And this role is exactly what we're going to be addressing today in the webinar. In the shipping business, fuel accounts for about 25% of the total cost of marine operations. And therefore, the choice of fuel needs to be very carefully balanced against the impact on the competitiveness of shipping. And as we look to the future, and we look towards moving to zero emissions shipping, we believe that LPG should be the fuel of choice in many applications, in many vessels. And briefly, I want to say why I think that's the case. LPG is a unique, exceptional energy. It's transported and stored as a liquid, but it's used and consumed as a gas. It can deliver cleaner, lower emissions propulsions than nearly all the alternatives currently available. For instance, if you compare it to heavy fuel oil, LPG has about a 97% reduction in SOx. It has probably 90% lower particulate emissions and a 25% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. LPG can provide almost all of the emissions benefits of natural gas or LNG, but without the associated methane leakage. And also with far lower infrastructure costs. LPG bunkering facilities are already widespread. Probably more than 1,000 such facilities exist currently across the world. An LPG vessel can be retrofitted to an existing drivetrain, which means that vessels currently using diesel or HFO, heavy fuel oil, can be converted at a modest cost to lower carbon fuel. And that is something that's very, very important advantage of LPG. Electricity, which is seen as the panacea by many for the decarbonization of all transport, all heating emissions, is impractical for shipping. Firstly, green electricity is not being developed fast enough, but secondly, and most importantly, the current cost and weight of batteries is prohibitive. LPG is not just a future fuel. LPG is being used today in many very large gas carriers. And there are currently over 100 very large gas carriers on order right now. But it's also a fuel for smaller vessels, for container ships, for passenger ferries, for fishing fleets, inboard and for outboard engines. And if LPG is the solution today for lower carbon emissions, the solution for deeper decarbonization, down to net zero, is renewable LPG. It's chemically and physically identical. Renewable LPG is a drop-in solution into exactly the same fuel system in the same ships, which ensures that these vessels, once converted, are effectively future-proof. LPG is the ideal fuel for quickly improving the environmental performance of ships. There's no technology barriers to overcome, and LPG bunkering is widely available across the world. It's already a low carbon and low emissions fuel, but with the advent of renewable LPG, low cost, deep carbonization of the shipping fleet can be a reality. That's what we want to talk about today. I hope this webinar is useful to you. Please don't hesitate to engage with the panelists via the Q&A in the chat box and the Q&A box. And you can also contact the WLPGA directly if you have any questions. And with that, Andre, I pass it back to you.
Thank you, James. Thank you for your words. And before we start with the panel discussion, let's launch a poll. We just want to understand from where in the world you are coming. So the poll should be launching very, very soon now. It's important to understand where our audience is coming from. There it is. We have already 90% of participation. So here we are. Here we have the results. So 57% are coming from Asia, 32 participants, followed closely by Europe and Latin America. Also North American people coming from. And so thank you for joining here, being with us today. It's now time to introduce Nikos Xidas, Technical Director of the World LPG Association, and that will moderate our panel of experts today. Welcome, Nikos.
Thank you, Andre. Many thanks, and a very big welcome to everyone. It's very exciting this panel today. We have gone in WLPGA through a very long journey. We have organized since we started in 2013. I think we started this journey. We organized a lot of conferences, external conferences. We have produced a lot of reports. We have produced brochures, studies we did. We have gone through really a very, very long way till today, which brought us to this success that we see now. The exciting thing of this panel today, it is that we have with us a panel of pioneers, and absolute pioneers. So we will see. We will start first with Lloyd's, with Panos Mitru, who is the global gas segment manager of Lloyd's Register in Marine and Offshore. And Lloyd's, it's the first classification society, which authorized the first vessel on the water, actually from Exmar. Then we will follow with Pontusberg from BW LPG, the first shipping company, which put an LPG-powered vessel on the water. To follow with our third pioneer from MAN. MAN is the manufacturer of these engines, and Kjeld Abo, who is the director of new technology on on the dual fuel engines, dual stroke engines. And we will end with Jeremy Hane from Propel, another pioneer, because Jeremy and Propel and Onyx are the manufacturer of the outboard LPG engines today. So it's a fantastic panel with us. But before I continue, I would like also to say a few words on what's coming next. We have gone through a long journey, as I said, since 2013, where we started with our chair, Captain Bernardo Herzer, who has been leading us through this journey until now. It is time, however, now that we change the chair of the working group, and we will be now in the hands of Lloyds and in the hands of Panos Mitru, who is the gas manager in Lloyds in the gas segment. And Lloyds will take us now through the next steps to our future. We have already gone a lot through to the gas carriers, the VLGCs, and we want to achieve much more also for the other segments. Panos was unfortunately not able to join us today because it is a national holiday in Greece, but he has some very strong and very positive messages that we will hear from him in his pre-recorded message. Normally, I would say, Panos, the floor is yours, but now I will say, can we watch the video?
Good morning. First off, I'd like to say that I am truly delighted to have been invited to make a short presentation at this distinguished meeting of the World LPG Association, and I would like to express my regrets that I cannot be with you in person on this occasion. I've split what I'm going to say today into two parts. After a brief introduction, I'd like to explain why I believe that LPG offers a substantial potential as a fuel, to explain how it offers scope to assist shipping on its complex decarbonization journey, whilst also future-proofing vessels and their fuel technology over their lifetimes. Then I would like to outline why Lloyd's Register should be your partner of choice in the conceptual design, development, installation, and operational assurance of LPG propulsion systems, both for new vessels and ships on the water today. For those of you who may not be familiar with Lloyd's Register, we are the oldest classification society in the world, with a history that dates back more than 260 years to a coffee shop on Lombard Street in London. It was set up to ensure that ship owners, merchants, and their customers could assure their seagoing vessels and cargoes with impartial appraisal and monitoring from an independent third party. We have come a long way since then, but today marine assurance is still our principal activity. In gas shipping, we are number one in both LPG and LNG ship classification, and recently we have been instrumental in the design, construction, and commissioning of the first vessels designed and built to use LPG as fuel. 3 ship operators, White Shine and Exmar at Jiangnan in China, and Byzantine at HMD in Korea, have seen their LPG fueled ships designed and built to Lloyd's Register class sailing to the horizon for the first time. Approximately 30 ships have been ordered under a large class already to use LPG as fuel. So let's examine LPG's potential as a marine fuel. It's broadly comparable with LNG as a less carbon-heavy energy source, but it has a range of benefits which, in our view, offer great appeal as shipping navigates the complex fuel of the future passage. LPG is a hydrocarbon, yes, but it cuts carbon emissions immediately by approximately 15%. Since it is not cryogenic, it is relatively easy to supply, store, and use on board commercial vessels, and it already has a sound global supply chain. The fuel offers scope for further emissions reductions as the development of synthetic LPG becomes viable. Mixed with today's conventional LPG, such a fuel has the potential to cut carbon emissions by a further margin, while it remains relevant to the same opportunities to install carbon capture and storage installations. However, the last step in the decarbonization process is perhaps the sector's trump card. A key advantage of LPG as fuel is that it presents synergies to the uptake of carbon-free ammonia when it becomes available as a marine fuel. So LPG as fuel stands closer to a pathway right through to carbon zero. But it is also a fuel available today, a fuel that enables ship owners to invest in new assets in the certain knowledge that their ships will operate effectively through a longer period in the transition, substantially closer to the end of their life cycle. Today, LPG offers immediate carbon reduction benefits. Tomorrow, its composition can be made greener by adding synthetic LPG, and when the technology and the fuel supply chain is in place, it offers scope for engines and fuel systems to be converted for carbon zero ammonia operation. I would like to stress the greenhouse gas benefits available today. LPG combustion emits less carbon dioxide and its emissions contain no methane. Synthetic LPG can be available soon, and given sufficient demand, it could be available to decarbonize marine fuel in the near term. Further into the future, LPG therefore offers both the scale and availability that will support a continuing decarbonization drive across a wide range of deep-sea vessels. Now, I would like to explain the significance of tightening emission regulations in a shipping context. The International Maritime Organization's Energy Efficiency Existing Ship Index and its Carbon Intensity Indicator have significant implications both for existing ships and new buildings. Whereas the EEXI gauges the efficiency of ships on the water as a one-off measure, the CII will become increasingly challenging because it will tighten steadily each year for the rest of this decade. From 2026, we don't yet know what the carbon reduction targets will be, but what we do know is that many deep-sea ships will face a growing challenge in meeting CII targets towards the end of this decade. While zero carbon fuels are not yet available and more operators will need to either order or retrofit ships, with efficiency exhausting its potential, cleaner hydrocarbons like LPG may be the only solution in prolonging the vessel's life and win time as greater volumes of zero carbon fuels will be becoming available. Now, let me turn to Lloyd's Register's involvement and expertise in this sector. I hope that it will become clear over the next couple of minutes that we are in pole position to support all aspects of the global LPG supply chain and its adoption as a future-orientated marine fuel. We have been active in LPG fuel developments for more than a decade now and issued our first approval in principle in 2012. We are involved in a total of approximately 30 ships, including options that will use LPG as fuel. They are now under construction at shipyards in China and South Korea and will deliver over the next 2 years. We expect to be engaged on more new buildings in the coming months, and we also anticipate being retained on the assurance of LPG engine and fuel supply system conversion projects in the near future. On new buildings, our work scope is far-ranging. We have developed an industry-leading assessment of risk-based design methodology, which we are constantly refining. We are engaged in providing advisory on technical specifications prior to contracts, and we also have post-delivery assurance and monitoring systems in place. We have also designed a specially formulated special review of gas trials procedures. This is designed to ensure that a robust due diligence process takes place at the delivery of assets using LPG as fuel. This is essential because such ships are new, They are more technology intensive and their assurance must be equally as comprehensive and robust as the systems they have been in place for other ship types for decades. In conclusion, I would like to thank the World LPG Association once again for giving Lloyd's Register this opportunity to talk briefly about LPG as a marine fuel of the future. I hope that you will agree with me that there are spectacular opportunities for LPG to evolve and to provide a pathway that offers scope for more owners within and beyond the LPG world to future-proof assets and progress steadily along the decarbonization pathway, ultimately achieving the carbon zero operation that is our industry's ultimate goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Panos, even if you're not with us, for this excellent presentation, an excellent listing of all of the benefits of LPG as a marine fuel. And this is so important that it comes actually from the biggest classification society, Lloyd's, and especially from Panos, who is going to be the chair of our working group from now on. Panos talked about spectacular opportunities, and absolutely the opportunities are really spectacular. He mentioned also that the first approval that Lloyd's gave goes back to 2012. So we see how long Lloyd's had been working on LPG as a fuel. And this takes us now to our second pioneer in this journey. And the second pioneer is the shipping, the operator. It is BW LPG. And we have with us Pontus Berg, who will take us through his side of journey. So Pontus, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Nikos. Thank you to WLPGA for having us. It's always a pleasure to be amongst you and support you. And could we have the presentation, please? Here we go. So good afternoon and good evening to all of you. And we can switch to next slide, please. At BW LPG, our LPG propulsion journey began in 2016, specifically in the content of compliance of IMO 2020, and with broader discussion on how we can realize our corporate mission of a better world. Do we install scrubbers, buy compliant fuels, or can we push the envelope and pioneer the technology of LPG propulsion? We started a technical project to explore LPG propulsion technology with partners such as Wärtsilä and MANES. The LPG retrofitting project you see today is the fruit of our collaboration. LPG as a marine fuel makes so much sense from a regulatory perspective. We are compliant with all regulations related to sulfur emission, and we improve our performance related to EEXI, CII, etc., etc. From an environmental perspective, we see meaningful declines in greenhouse gas emissions such as CO2, SOx, NOx, and particulate matters. As LPG consists of propane and butane or a mix of the two, there is no methane slip, as simply isn't present. And by retrofitting, we extend the use of our assets and decarbonize meaningfully from a well-to-wake basis, and that is especially compared with new buildings. Apart from these environmental advantages, we also benefit operationally and commercially. For example, LPG propulsion improves total voyage economics. We save time by bunkering LPG while loading cargo, and with dual fuel capability, we have fuel flexibility to ensure an uninterrupted operation and buffering from fuel price sensitivities. Let's skip to slide 3, please. LGIP technology is a necessary and complementary step in the advance of the technology needed for zero carbon propulsion. Here's a little bit how it works, if we get the video to run. Well, first, the LGIP deck tanks are filled using the cargo system while loading. LPG is drawn from these tanks into the fuel gas supply system and piped to the engine as a liquid. A small amount of compliant fuel is injected into the engine as the piston nears the top. It sparks under pressure and LPG burns to create propulsive force. This technology is now scaled up and fully operational for over 10,000 running hours and counting in our fleet today. Let's move on to the next slide once this fancy movie stops. We are now more than halfway through our retrofitting program, with 10 LPG-powered vessels on the water, 2 at the yard and 3 more to go. We have not had any major surprises. This is thanks to rigorous testing of our prototype and our experienced and dedicated team on site. While we have not experienced any major technical hiccups, we have learned valuable practical lessons. For example, we now know how important it is having appropriate filters that can manage organic materials and dirt in the LPG bunker supply. I think we can run the movie. Oh, some small technical things. We also know that the established maritime practice of ship-to-ship transfers can be applied to the STS of LPG as a bunker fuel. Here we are supposed to see that via one of our TC-in vessels from Epic Kosan. This operation allowed us control over project timeline, and we no longer need to worry about uncertain berthing schedules for discharge of heel or gassing up of the vessels. Okay, then we can move to the last. So in conclusion, shipping is ready for LPG as a marine fuel, with the necessary technology and infrastructure to support this use, which I hope that we have proven. We have proved that the retrofit is a good alternative to new builds, especially from an environmental point of view, but also to extend the competitive useful life of our assets in an increasing regulated shipping world. We look forward to seeing peers in shipping adopt the LPG as fuel. We'll be glad to guide and advise if that is possible. And with that, thank you very much for listening.
Many thanks, Pontus, again. Great presentation. And indeed, what a great leadership decision from BW LPG to put the first ships on the water. We always know that these decisions are difficult, and people wait for somebody else to do the first step, and you have done it. And congratulations again. Clearly, BW LPG is today the source, I believe, of the expertise on this segment, and I hope others follow the same example. There will be, I'm sure, many questions that will be coming through the chat, through the Q&A, and to all our audience, please don't hesitate to put your questions on the chat box. But before we go to questions from the chat box, I would like myself, Pontus, to ask you something. Through this journey, from when you started, I mean, what were the biggest challenges that you had to face?
Oh, that's a good question. It's not very easy to answer it either, Nikos. I mean, just by starting, and when we started this in 2016 discussing, there wasn't anything available. And I'm sure the next speaker, Kjell Obo in MEN, remember that meeting we had, like, we need to run on LPG. It's like, cannot. But we pushed through. We managed to get the suppliers up and running, and they managed to deliver. So thanks to them. But more so, that was part of the struggle, was to convince maybe our own stakeholders and shareholders to put the money on the table and well, my head on the blocks, and then get going. And so far it's been a great success. But it took quite some time. And as you rightfully say, Nikos, we placed 4 orders and got going, and then it took almost a year before we started seeing the next real orders coming in. And today, as James started with saying, we have just above 100 gas carriers with LPG propulsion on order out there, which is good and bad for many reasons. But it's really good that we see that the technology is out there and that LPG is being adopted as a fuel. So Nikos, my biggest challenge was to convince people that this is a good idea. I was convinced, and I still am convinced, that this is a very good decision.
Fantastic, excellent to hear this from you, Pontus, especially as you have gone through this very challenging and very pioneering trip. Well, is it something that you would have done differently if you had to do it again?
Yeah, I would have skipped the COVID part of the retrofit because that has been really difficult. I mean, we were a little bit stressed back then, and we were maybe focusing too much on the short-term goal, which was IMO 2020 compliance. And I think if we'd spent a little bit more time, we would have pushed for more readiness and more finesse and more readiness towards maybe ammonia or other alternative fuels or whatever comes next, because we are still sitting here today not knowing exactly which way to go. I really like the idea of bio LPG, but is that going to be the only solution? I don't know, because I think it is a great solution, so don't take me wrong, but I don't know today when or if it's going to be available for us to use as a bunker fuel. So I would have wanted maybe myself and my team to be able to think a little bit further. But of course, that's always easy to say in retrospective as well. In retrospect. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. I will maybe take one of the questions that I see on the Q&A, Pontus. I don't know if you could go through this one. There is a question, what is the ideal LPG mix for this type of LPG engine that you are using? I mean, do you use primarily LPG and the mixer with the other dual fuel, or how is it done?
So far, we have run the engine on both propane and butane and mixes of the two, because we've done a little bit of grade changes when we are changing cargoes, etc. And then we got a little bit heel of this or that left over. And normally we would dispose of it or try to sell as much as possible. But now we've used it in both pure butane, pure propane and mixes. And it works brilliantly on both types of it and in mixes. And of course, we are trying to use as little normal liquid fuel, VLSFO or MGO, as possible. And we are pushing Kjell and his team to keep on developing. So in the future, hopefully, we don't need to use any pilot fuel at all. But we are within what they promised so far. But I mean, we can't stop developing.
Well, okay, that would be fantastic. No pilot fuel at all. This is what we want.
This is what we want.
Yes, exactly. So I think now it's probably time that we pass to our next pioneer, who is the manufacturer of the LPG engines, which is MAN Energy Solutions, in fact. And we have with us the Director of New Technology, Energy Solutions, Kjeld Abo. Kjeld has been with us for some time, and of course, MAN and Kjeld, as a member of WLPGA, we have gone together through a lot of conferences and communications, and shared part of this trip. So with this, I would like to invite Kjeld to the floor. So Kjeld, the floor is yours.
Hi, Kjeld. Sorry, I think you are on mute. If you could unmute, please.
Sorry. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. I would just say thank you very much, Nikos, for giving me the word, and also for being able to, or inviting us to participate here. It's really fantastic. And I will also say to what Pontus was saying there, and you, Nikos, also agree to its being pioneers here from BW Gas have been very, very fantastic. Also for us as a technology provider. As a company, we are, of course, very much interested in being part of this decarbonization, and LPG is one of the fuels that will be used, is used, and will be used a lot in the future. We are really convinced about this. We also believe that there will be other fuels, like Pontus, you also mentioned, but LPG can really be strong, and seems to go that way. Could I start the presentation, please? So what we have now in our portfolio for two-stroke engine, which goes from 3 megawatt up to 83 megawatt on one engine, typically for vessels with larger than 2,000 deadweight ton. We have, based on the diesel principle, we have for LNG, ethane, methanol, LPG, and we are also working on a new engine for ammonia. today you see here in the bottoms, it says sold 101 for LPG. It's actually 113, which are sold to operate on LPG. It's really fantastic how it's growing into this market. Until now, it has been carriers, very large gas carriers that have actually covered this you can say potential technology potential, and we also hear from others in the market that there is an interest to go beyond that. We have in the last half a year, we have seen AP Møller coming forward with methanol engine that have taken a lot of attention because they were the first one not using methanol on a methanol carrier, but on another type of application, in that case, container vessels. So we believe also when the first one is coming up for non-carrier, we will see a lot of attention also for LPG. Could I have the next, please? I will not repeat the things here that have been said already, but there is a lot of advantages. And one thing is also worth mentioning is that the efficiency of the engine, the power output, is exactly the same as you get when you have a fuel oil burning engine. What we do is we add on an extra fuel injection system so it can operate on 100% fuel oil, or in this case, 100% LPG. You can say there is still a little bit of pilot oil, and yeah, Pontus, we are working on getting that number down for sure. But that's the way it is. It's a simplification in many ways, because the standard engine is still the standard diesel engine with these add-ons. Could I have the next one, please? It's a high energy density storage, about these 1.5 times the diesel oil, and it is something which is quite relevant when it comes to different projects where we speak to design institutes, we speak to yards and so on. Depending on what type of vessel it is, a lot of consideration have to be made, and especially the tank volume can have an impact also on the goods transported, how much will it take of space and so forth. But there's a lot of consideration which is already going on at different places. It's attractive fuel price, and this potential global bunkering network is also something that is very much in the mind of the different ship owners when we speak to them about dual fuel and LPG. They would like to have a certainty of the availability of the fuel. Of course, pricing is something which is also looked at, but it is a simple system compared to the cryogenic system that you use, for instance, for LPG or ethane. Could I have the next one? What has been very interesting to see is that now our LPG engines for very large gas carriers is becoming a industrial standard, you could say. This is a privilegium that we have seen and got after this introduction of the LPG engine. Yes, next please. Yeah, that was my short introduction or input to the panel discussion. And back to you, Nikos.
Yeah, many thanks, Jens. It's really exciting the way you have gone through the manufacturing and promoting these engines and where we are now. Especially exciting the increase of the orders from 102 that I had just 2-3 weeks ago to 113. I would like to ask you one thing. The LPG, the density, the energy density of the LPG is very, very important compared to the other fuels. What is your view? We know that the LPG needs about 1.5 times more space, more storage capacity than MGO or diesel, and LNG is 1.6, the methanol is 2.3, ammonia it's actually 2.9, and hydrogen 4.3. Is this not a very important factor for the alternative fuel and for designers, operators to take into account and actually make it a preferred fuel, the LPG?
Yes, it's definitely something discussed, but it depends very much also what type of application we speak about. Is it, for instance, for container vessels? It could be located under, you can say, the bridge in itself. If it's a two-island container vessel, it could be also be, you can say, located close to the engine or also under the bridge. There are so many different considerations to be made, but you are right. It is an important question, but we work with the yards when they come and ask.
Yeah, thank you, Kjeld. I would have many more questions and many more questions on the chat, but I would like, for the interest of time, move to our last speaker, who is the third pioneer in our panel, which is it's Propel. It's Jeremy Hane. Jeremy is the Vice President of Sales and Business Development of Onyx, which is actually Propel, the manufacturer of these engines. This segment is also an equally important, very important segment in the marine that we need really to help grow. So we all need to pay attention to this segment also. And with this, I would like to give the floor to Jeremy. Jeremy, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Nikos, and thank you to the WLPGA, and good morning, everyone. Onyx is focused on delivering technology to help power a cleaner future, and I'm happy to be with each of you today to discuss our Propel LPG outboards. When we looked into developing a best-in-class, environmentally friendly solution, we really looked at all of the options available to us, and we determined that LPG is by far the best mode of energy for marine outboards. It's powerful, it's clean, there's zero fuel spillage, zero evaporative emissions, significantly lower carbon emissions. It's economical, sometimes 60% less expensive than gasoline. It eliminates choking and priming and winterizing of fuel systems. It just is a simpler solution for both commercial and recreational boaters. It's portable. It offers unlimited runtime with the simple change of a cylinder. And sometimes overlooked, it's also light as compared to batteries. And as many of you know, batteries are very heavy, and weight and boats are not a good combination. And so for these reasons, we've launched the Propel LPG outboards, and I believe we all have a tremendous opportunity ahead of us with LPG in the marine industry. Next slide, please. You can go to slide 3. In the US, we're thrilled to be launching 4 models of outboards in 22, from a 2.5 horsepower up through a 15 horsepower. All of these motors significantly exceed the current and proposed US EPA and European conformity standards. If you go to the next slide, I've just highlighted a recent test that we did with ICAT in India. And what you can see here is that our 9.9 was a 49% reduction on hydrocarbons and nitrous oxides, and a 43% reduction on CO as compared to the US and EU standards. So ultra low emissions. And these numbers are something that we all can be excited about as we look into this market. But there's another opportunity that I want to share with you today, or another story that we're even more excited about. 2 years ago, a gentleman that many of you probably know, Mr. Suyash Gupta, chairman of HT Systems in India, asked if I was aware that there are over 4 million commercial fishermen in India using outboards daily in their fishing operations. I didn't know that. I didn't know there were that many. That's a big number. And he said that fishermen could save 60% on LPG over petrol. Every day, these fishermen go out 3 to 4 hours out to sea. They fish through the night and they come back another 3 to 4 hours. That's 6 to 7 hours of runtime per day, typically using about a gallon per hour. It's a lot of fuel, over 1,000 gallons annually. And these fishermen could save over $10 per day on an average of 20 days per month. That is a significant savings for them. And so I'm pleased to announce that we have now completed our first sea trials with HT Systems and their partner Indian Oil. And we will be supplying fishermen with Propel LPG outboards in 22. So that's something that we are very excited about. And our plans for 22 and beyond are to replicate this opportunity in other parts of the world. Europe and South America and the Middle East all present similar opportunities, but it will take working with some of you to partner and execute on that. And so again, I want to thank the WLPGA for some time this morning to speak, and I hope to work with some of you as we commercialize this product in other parts of the world. So back to you, Nikos. Thank you.
Many thanks, Jeremy. I hope that everybody's convinced for this really great potential of this market segment also. Not only the great savings that one can have by running LPG outboards, but also the environmental savings, no spills on water, and so many things that really make this segment deserve the success that the other segment that we talked about before has gone through. Just to catching up on what Jeremy said, Suyash Gupta and the Indian Oil will be with us in the LPG week in Dubai in the Marine Snapshot. So this is one more reason why everybody should join us in Dubai for the LPG week. Jeremy, there would be again many questions and from the audience, but one thing I would like myself to ask you: why do you think this segment has not picked up as fast as the other segments? So what are the main barriers for you?
Well, I think as some of the earlier panelists discussed, it takes time to get the technology right. LPG is a simple fuel, but each fuel has its own idiosyncrasies. And so what we have done is spent the last 2 to 3 years making sure that this product is bulletproof, not only for a recreational boater, but also a commercial fisherman who is relying on that motor to perform every single day so that he can put food on his family's table. And so I think just the commercialization takes time, but in the end result will be a much more successful solution for the entire industry. So that is what we have done. We've taken the time up front to make sure we have a successful product for the long term.
Thank you, Jeremy. We will be fully on your side to grow this market segment. Be sure. So I think this this closes the presentations from our panelists. And once more, it is great that all these pioneers are all members of the World LPG Association, WLPGA. There are many questions coming, both from the chat, but also I would have many more questions myself. But I think I will leave this to Andre probably to take it further. So Andre, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nikos, and thank you all. I mean, it has been very engaging. I would like to highlight we have received 15 questions, and Pontus and Kjell have been answering them in the chat. So I really appreciate that. It has been very engaging for the audience. Nikos, I would like to say, and maybe all of you can contribute a little bit. This is very promising, the use of LPG as a marine fuel, and I think everyone is very engaged, just as the questions showed. How can we learn more and contribute to the opening of this new segment?
Yes, thanks, Andre. Very, very important question, actually, yes, for everyone. Well, first of all, it is by following up our activities, and I would invite everyone to join our working groups and help us take further this segment. We have produced, since we started, various reports, various brochures. So you can find links for the use of LPG as a marine fuel, for example. That was our first report, which we have updated again in 2021. There was another report that we did in bunkering, so LPG bunkering, another important report, this one. We have the LPG charter of benefits for the marine. That's another thing very useful. And of course, our website, our WLPGA website. And don't forget that we have also a specific LPG applications website with even more materials in there. So this is all source for information, for knowledge. And of course, it goes without saying, whoever would like to know more, just come back to me.
Anyone else wants to add something else? Okay, so there's time for another one. I think it's very important, because are there any countries where LPG has been used already as marine fuel and in what applications? Can we learn for other countries and operations? Can you, each one of you, tell one or two good success stories, or very shortly?
Well, Andre, I don't know if, I mean, I don't want to take the floor from the others, but, international shipping, the large vessels, I think, have no country. But for other segments, smaller segments, like the segment, for example, of outboard engines of Jeremy, we know very well how much is going on in Chile for fishing. They have a very important fishing fleet, boats which run only on LPG. There were also other examples in Italy, in Venice, with LPG powered small boats. There are examples in Sweden for salmon fishing. There are examples in Germany, the inland waterways. There are small boats who run on LPG. Actually, there are conversion of petrol engines, which, like the autogas, in fact, it's the same thing. They have been converted to run on LPG. So there are many areas where we could learn from. But I don't know, maybe Kjell or Pontus, Jeremy would like to add.
Yeah, I could add maybe. You can hear me?
Yes.
Good. I would say, coming a little bit back to to what I said in my presentation, we have seen a boom of interest for methanol when it came. Then when AP Møller - Mærsk, they ordered the first container vessel on methanol. I really believe that if we get another application than as a carrier, as the first one, that also will increase the interest very much. And I think in some way we could work all on that. We could also look at what will be a LPG version of a certain application and put that into, you can say, the promotion of using it, because I believe that many more in the industry should notice LPG as one of the future fuels.
And not only for VLGCs, for many other
Yes,
kinds
exactly.
of boats and carriers. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, Nikos, what I wanted to add is that we have been successful when the LPG company was involved in the discussion with the customer from the outset. Dealers that are selling gasoline and diesel and battery powered boats are not as incentivized to really see LPG be successful. And their customers will ask, where do I get the fuel and what is the cost of the fuel? And by having the LPG company there at the beginning as a partner, as a key stakeholder in the endeavor, we have found has been much more successful in the United States and other countries. And certainly that is why we're seeing success now in India.
Jeremy, I will fully agree. If okay, I'll fully agree. When we look at the LNG, when that was utilized and ordered here in the middle of between 2012 2015, that was clearly the suppliers of the LNG was part of the negotiation.
Yeah.
And you know, so that was very important. I fully agree with you.
Absolutely.
We have one last question before wrapping up. This is for Pontus. What is the specific LPG specification for marine that BW use? More C3 or C4 will be the best?
We have found well, I shouldn't say, because we have only tested butane with some leftover heel we had, but it works similarly good. But if you look at the specification sheet, propane will contain just a tad more of energy than butane, but it's marginal, so I doubt we will see any real difference. So the short experience we have from running on butane or a mix of propane butane is that it works just as well as running on propane, on pure propane. We don't see an increase in pilot fuel or any other need going on butane or a mixture. It just smooth, and it's a smooth transition as well, even despite there are some different temperatures on the two liquids, but no issues at all, no big difference. So you can mix whatever is cheapest to buy.
Thank you, Pontus. So we have many more questions. We will follow up on the unanswered questions. So thank you very much for your interest. And this wraps our session today. This was a super interesting session, and it stands clear that LPG, it's a perfect solution for many types of ships and applications. I want to thank you all for being with us today, for your interest in this edition of the LPG Talks Live, and of course, for your interest in LPG as a marine fuel. If you are looking to participate in the LPG industry event, don't forget to register for the LPG Week 2021 and make the best of it. I would like to highlight there will be a marine snapshot at LPG Week 2021 in Dubai that will take place on Wednesday, 8th of December at 11 a.m. I'm sure it will be a great session as well. Also, a very special thank you to James, Nikos, Panos, Pontus, Kjell, and Jeremy for being here with us today. In case you want to share this session with your colleagues, I'm happy to inform that this session, as always, is being recorded and will be available for all of you. We're launching the normal exit poll, so stay tuned and provide us some feedback so we can improve. And thank you, and looking forward to seeing you in Dubai in LPG Week in December. Thank you, and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you. Stay safe, everyone.